Out of all the massive games coming out this year, Dying Light 2 was by far my most anticipated. Keep in mind it's only February and we still have so many great games coming out like Crossfire X, Starfield, Slime Rancher 2, Redfall, Modern Warfare 2, Stalker 2, Heart of Chernobyl, among literally dozens of other games. Dying Light was the first game I ever played and my favorite game I ever played during the pandemic times, and me and my brother played through the entire game the same week that COVID first shut everything down. Dying Light 2, while only 2 years in the making for me and Travis, it was 7 years in the making for people who played the game originally. And don't worry, this video will contain zero spoilers to the story. I'm just going to talk about the game, the mechanics, the design, and just things I like about it. Dying Light 2 has so many things about it that just makes it well worth the wait. But also, it has some things that really were quite disappointing. In many ways, it's nothing more than a clone of Dying Light, but it had so many things that were in the first game. The first thing being that there aren't any guns or firearms whatsoever, only bows and melee weapons. At times that can be really annoying, but it makes complete sense. Dying Light 2 takes place 15 years after the first one. The virus was attempted to be contained in the city of Iran, but it got out and took over the entire world, leaving nothing but zombies. At first, I wasn't massive in the game's design. The entire city felt a little bit too big, but the weapons, although really cool, felt very weak, and I felt the way roughly the first few hours. Then it just got so good. I won't be covering any of the story for spoiler reasons like I said, but when I say the story shocked me, I mean it. It took me around 6 hours into the game to enjoy it, and for those 6 hours, I was worried it was going to be another Cyberpunk. I was worried it was going to be another game I play for a few hours and drop out of it because I have no inspiration to progress or even beat it. When I say Dying Light 2 is on par or exceeding the first game's story, I 100% mean it. It is a very slow burn. In fact, it took me around 6, almost 7 hours into the game to truly begin enjoying it. But like I said, every second spent playing the game afterwards was astonishing and intense. There are so many moments that you just would not see coming that it makes it so much better when it actually happens. I don't usually gasp out loud or really have any reaction to video games, but there was a part around 17 hours in that made me lose my mind. Now, the thing is that makes it even better is there are times the game will give you 30 seconds to select an answer. Depending on which answer you select, it will change the entire story from that point forward. The first game only featured one somewhat lackluster ending, but with Dying Light 2, all endings had levels of intrigue behind them, and even the worst possible one could be good. Travis got the worst possible ending, and I got one of the better ones. I don't love the first game because of the game itself. Although a fantastic experience from top to bottom, I enjoyed it and still to this day love it because of the fact it was the first game I played and beat during early days of lockdown. When it comes to basic melee mechanics, there's very little to no difference apart from one major gripe. Once a weapon breaks, it's gone. You can't get it ever again. In Dying Light, each weapon had a total of 3 upgrades. Some weapons had like 4 or 5, but most of them had 3, which each time you repaired it and made it weaker. But at Dying Light 2, when it breaks, it's done. You won't get it back again. We see some other returning features that would make this game insanely empty if they weren't in it, like the skill trees and the crafting. However, with the skill trees, there are only 2 this time, instead of the 3 we had in Dying Light. At first, I was on edge about that being a bad or a good idea but with only 2 trees, but I can officially say now that it was a brilliant move. Having 3 different skill trees made it feel crowded. There are your basic mechanics like zombies and parkour, which is obvious, but this time any enemies you find in the streets are using melee weapons just like you because guns don't exist in the game anymore. This makes the game a bit easier when facing multiple enemies at once, but also tedious when you have to run and then get up in their face and Like I said, outside of the numerous things that return from Dying Light, there are so many new additions to the game that make it feel the same, but also completely different and fresh, with the worst addition being chemical zones. Chemical zones basically act like the invisible barrier types. They lock off certain parts of the map, and if you go into them, you die. They're insanely annoying, but easily avoidable, with some objectives making you run all the way around them just to get to the point you need to get to. Probably my favorite addition to the game is the ability to upgrade your crafting recipes. Starting at Gray Rarity, you can upgrade them to get a better variation of that one item. This mechanic is so unique and smart, and it makes me wonder how the first game would have been if it had an upgrading, like, crafting recipe system. Like any game, there are some very good things about the game and very bad things. For For the most part, I had a lot of fun playing Dying Light 2. When playing, I did notice some moments that were very unpolished. In the final boss fight, the boss got stuck in an area that we couldn't get to, and there's been other really weird things, like certain objectives not working. All in all, Dying Light 2 was a really fun playthrough with a very slow start to begin with. Like I mentioned earlier, the first 6 or so hours were insanely slow, with 2 hours of those 6 hours being the tutorial. When comparing it to the first game, it's so difficult to compare them. With Dying Light 2 being fresh in my mind, I might be overhyping it. In 2 years from now, will I feel the same way about Dying Light 2 as I do for Dying Light currently? I don't know. But there's one thing that drives me up the wall about this game. This irritated me so much when playing. There is no mention apart from one line of dialogue in the beginning of the game about Crane, the main protagonist of the first game. Like, it's like if Woods and Mason were like as awesome as they were in Black Ops 1, and then when Black Ops 2 came around, they weren't mentioned at all. It just doesn't make sense. Dying Light 2 and the first one are connected. So the entire story behind the game is how they failed to contain the virus in Haran. You literally get told that when you boot up the game. You couldn't have just one cutscene showing Crane dying or any other evidence that he left. Apart from those few major gripes I have about the game, I did really, really enjoy it. Was it worth the wait? 100% yes. I haven't uploaded in a while, like 2 weeks actually. And Dying Light 2 is the actual reason for that. I haven't been playing anything else besides Dying Light 2, and making this video, getting the gameplay, writing the script, it's all been a whole thing. This video is my comeback, I guess. I have like 5 GTA videos in the works, and then I have a review on Crossfire X, which releases today, as of this video being uploaded. I'm recording this at 1:21 on a school night. I'll be reviewing Crossfire X eventually a couple weeks down the line, maybe like a week or so down the line. But I wanted to get this video out just to show that I do still upload. A bunch of things have been going on in my life recently, with Dying Light 2 coming out and pretty much sucking up any time I had to do anything. So yeah, that's why I haven't uploaded a video in like 2 weeks.